Attorney Padilla, Chairman Jalandoni, may plano ba na mag-declare? May plano ba na mag-declare ng ceasefire ulit tulad na nangyari yung last month?
I think we'll be talking about it if the assessment, if the ceasefires have been successful, then it will have a positive impact for the possibility of future ones. So we'll be getting the reports from the ground, from the revolutionary forces throughout the Philippines to check how well was it carried out, and all the possibilities that they could recommend also if that could be done again in order to improve the atmosphere for the continuation of the formal peace talks.
Chair Padilla.
Yeah, we will always be ready to declare a ceasefire. Any ceasefire that lessens violence, the incidents of violence, will always be good. I think not only for both sides but for the entire Filipino people. So we encourage, and we have positive assessments of the past ceasefire in December. We hope to have again the positive assessment this 1 week ceasefire, and hopefully again for the future ceasefires.
Chair Jalandoni, any comment on the arrest of Alan Nasmines on the eve of the resumption of the formal peace talks?
Well, Alan Nasmines is a valued NDF consultant and is covered by the protection of the Joint Agreement on Safety and Immunity Guarantees. So we are demanding that his release be carried out as soon as possible, and such release will be of positive value towards the continuation of the peace negotiations. So we are making it known, also through a press release, that Alan Nasmines is a very valued NDF consultant and a document of identification holder, and should be released in accordance with the JASI.
Attorney Padilla.
Well, I think when he was arrested, there was no document at the time of the arrest that he was able to present. Neither did he present the letter of acknowledgement from the government. But just the same, we will try and verify whether he is indeed a part of the JASI. And when so done, and when so accomplished, we'll act accordingly.
We confirm that he is an NDF consultant with a document of identification holder. And even if he is not holding it at the moment, he would still be in possession legally of it. If he left it in his house, on his residence, or with his family, that document of identification is still his. It's still in his possession. It is valid, and it should be he should be covered by the protection of the JASI.
What's your message to the Filipino people para sa darating na isang linggo ng inyong pag-uusap?
Well, ang message of the Filipino people is we carry their aspirations and interests to fight for their aspirations and their rights, and that they, of course, we know, are not weary of struggling for their rights, and they will continue. And we in the negotiating panel will bring their interests, and we hope that these negotiations that will address the roots of the armed conflict will bring about a lasting benefit by addressing their aspirations for their basic fundamental rights. Like land reform and national nationalization, economic sovereignty, justice, and genuine democracy for the peasants, workers, women, youth, indigenous people, and all of the sectors of the Filipino people.
Yeah, well, we have high hopes. This is the resumption of the formal talks after 6 years of impasse, and after 24 years of negotiation and a 40-year long insurgency. So we have high hopes that this will be a start, the beginning of a real honest-to-goodness process for a just and equitable peace settlement between both parties that will lead to concrete benefits for our people. And we are hopeful that we will remain focused on these efforts, and that we will accomplish this in a matter of, hopefully within 3 years, maybe less, maybe much, much less. Thank you.
Mr. Jalandoni, sorry, go ahead.
Yes. Well, we are conscious and aware of the conditions and difficulties and sufferings of the Filipino people, and we carry their aspirations with us, and we are inspired by their continuing relentless struggle for their rights, for true justice and peace.
Last month, you demanded the release of 14 or 17 political prisoners, preferably before the resumption of the talks. And Mr. Padilla, you said you would do everything you could to make it happen.
And we did everything we could.
Well,
we did everything we could. We facilitated the passport or exit visas of I think 3 or 4 of their current consultants now. We are still working on a case involving Ipong, and we're still reviewing the other incidents or the other cases. So I think we've done our utmost best to try and live up to our agreements, to our concessions, no? And I think it's just a matter of time also that we are also reviewing the other cases.
We acknowledge the achievements done by the GPH panel, Attorney Pablito Sanidad, for the making possible the participation of Randall Chanis and also of Rafael Baidosis in these negotiations. We know that the GPH panel, Attorney Sanidad, are working very hard to get the expeditious release. And as we had agreed last time, there will be continuous efforts to get the release of these NDFP consultants before the second round of formal talks. We are also bringing up also the effective steps needed for the release of about 350 political prisoners. We appreciate the statement made by the GPH panel that they are in sympathy and support for efforts of organizations towards principled amnesty of the political prisoners. There was also amnesty for the 400 military personnel.
Does it make the negotiations difficult that political prisoners has become such a big issue in the beginning?
Well, I don't think it should be such a big issue because, you know, the overwhelming majority of these political prisoners have been arrested and detained under the Arroyo regime. And so the accountability for this is with the Arroyo regime. Now with the new Aquino regime saying that they want a new beginning and also that they see the example given by the mother of the new president and also the possibilities of having this kind of reconciliation, it should be a task and an opportunity that is there that would improve actually the peace negotiations when this is being carried out in consonance with various organizations and also through the peace negotiations.
Yeah.
So I think it's a fine opportunity for both sides to work for, and that will mean a positive achievement that will help in the future of the peace negotiations.
Yeah, human rights, political prisoners have always been an important subject, even for the Philippine government. And we are working hard, not to worsen the problem. In effect, we are also saying that it's good that there's an acknowledgement that these violations were made during the Arroyo regime, and that I think even in the Aquino regime now, there is hardly any incident of forced disappearances or extrajudicial execution. But let me say also that we are focused on trying to come up with solutions to the armed conflict, and that will mean talking about economic, social economic reforms, political constitutional reforms, as well as the other substantive agreements. So we want to stay focused with that, and I think we had an agreement also with the NDF to put important matters such as the political prisoners on a side table mechanism, not making it less important, but staying focused on the main agenda of our agreements in order to meet our goal of attaining just and equitable settlement.
I think the release of political prisoners is a very important issue because, for one, these political prisoners have struggled together with so many others against the Arroyo regime, against even the Marcos regime. So they deserve to be given the protection of the Agreement on Human Rights and International Humanitarian Law. They are also victims of trumped-up charges filed against them. So that means the carrying out of their release is part of duty and obligation coming from the agreement, and as the Oslo Joint Statement number 1 of February 2004 says, it is also an act of magnanimity. So we take these two sides, and so we consider it a very important issue, because these people deserve really, because of their struggle, their valiant struggle against the Marcos regime, against the Arroyo regime, and being victims of trumped-up charges, they deserve to be released in accordance with the agreement, and be as a goodwill and confidence building measure, as an act of magnanimity.
You've both been here before.
Yes.
What makes it different this time?
What makes it different this time is, I think, we are pursuing the substantive agreements for one. No? The social economic reforms, political constitutional reforms, after more than 6 years, an impasse. No? So I think there is a focus on that, of course, while restating as well the importance of the political prisoners' issues. No? But I think we are moving forward insofar as the other substantive agreements are concerned, and I hope we stay focused as well on moving forward on these agreements.
Well, the reconvening of the Joint Monitoring Committee is very important, because it's the mechanism of the Agreement on Human Rights to see to it that the implementation is effective. That agreement is one of a very high standard, and so it would help very much the peace negotiations. Second, there's a commitment to accelerate and sustain negotiations on social and economic reforms and move on to political and constitutional reforms. But there is also the deeply worsening economic crisis, which renders the Filipino people subject to so much suffering. Therefore, this adds to the urgency of carrying out these reforms under the present conditions. And so, if there is the political will and commitment of both sides, these are conditions which make it more urgent, but also more of a challenge and more favorable to achieve these results within a reasonable time frame.
And that's why we are, again, re-emphasizing to Louis that we hope to do this as fast as we could, so that they can help us as partners in trying to solve the problems instead of...
it's important what GPH panel chair said in the preliminary talks last month, that for the GPH, the Communist Party of the Philippines, the New People's Army, the National Democratic Front, are not considered by them as terrorists, as some foreign governments like the US or the European Union had done. But rather, we have to see, as recognized also by GHP panel chairperson Alexander Padilla, that these forces played a very big and valiant role in the struggle against the Marcos dictatorship and against the Arroyo regime. So that should be recognized.
Shall we take the last one? I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's okay.
May mga visit consultants pa, Louis. Like the case of Leo Velasco. Any statement?
Well, for the cases of NDF consultants who were disappeared, like Leo Velasco, Prudencio Calubid and his family, Celine Balba, Gloria Soco and Ariel Beloy, or also Rogelio Calubad and his son Gabriel. The demand in a statement and in the position of the NDF, there should be justice given to them. There should be an independent investigation that should bring justice to these people. Also, there's the killing of Sotero Llamas and NDF consultants. So that will be part of the discussions in the Joint Monitoring Committee. So Fidel Cavili and his committee and Chito Gascon, his committee will be taking this up. Certainly, it's a very important position, demand also, that has to be paid attention to, because the families of these victims will also be asking, what is the justice now? Leo Velasco was disappeared in February 2007 when Philip Alston was making his investigation in the Philippines. Prudencio Calubid and his family and group were disappeared in June 2006. So it's now already almost 5 years, 4 years.
5 years tomorrow in the case of Leo Velasco.
Well, Leo Velasco, February 2007.
February 17.
February, okay.
Yeah,
In Caliente.
let me just say that all of this, of course, happened during the Arroyo regime. Government is not a monolith. As you know, the Aquino administration, in fact, tried to create or establish a truth commission, which was supposed to investigate and look into the crimes or offenses of the Arroyo regime, which unfortunately was decided to be unconstitutional by a Supreme Court that is actually appointed by the Arroyo regime. So again, we are trying to arrive at the truth of all of these efforts, and we will ask all the help that we can get. But you have to see also the Aquino regime for what it is. It's a government that is in the throes of being a new recent administration, trying to do what it can, trying to be, but also limited in many ways.
I think the JMC, on the part of the NDFP Monitoring Committee, has suggested independent and joint investigations with the support or participation of the Royal Norwegian Government, the International Committee of the Red Cross, possible. So it will be discussed now.
Yeah, that's
that
part
means
of the agreement.
it will be part of the agenda that has to be taken up. The justice to be done for the disappeared NDFP consultants and their families, but also other disappeared people. There are others, so like Jonas Burgos has disappeared for a long time. What about the 2 UP students and the Filipino peasant who disappeared? All of these, they may not be a part of NDFP consultant. That they Merino. So this has to be taken up also. I think the Joint Monitoring Committee will have this task of taking this up in the coming days and the coming weeks and months.
Thank you. Yeah, we said we finished with the others now, so you have also to finish. I'm sorry. Thank you. It has to be the same rules for everyone,
They came all the way from the Philippines.
Sorry.
Last night.
There will be other opportunities. Thank you, sir.